So today we are joined by Dr. Seranne, who's no stranger to Mindful Mondays. She's a clinical wellness specialist at Discovery Vitality, focusing on mental well-being. So Dr. Seranne, the last time we had you here, we discussed extensively about the difference between mental well-being and mental health and what negatively affects our mental well-being. So what are we going to discuss today?
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Shidu, and I'm so glad to be back. So today, what I'd like to discuss and what I'd like to focus on is a little bit on sleep hygiene, and as well as how mindfulness can help both our sleep and our general mental well-being. So maybe I can delve into these topics a little bit deeper. So sleep hygiene, what is it? Well, basically it's a term that basically alludes to habits that we can get into that helps us improve the quality and our duration of our sleep. So I'll give you a few examples. Some of the examples for sleep hygiene include things like setting sleeping times and wake times. So what that means is you set a bedtime and you set an awake time and you stick to those times day in and day out. I know. And the key to this is actually you stick to those times even if you've had poor quality of sleep. So if your wake time is 5:30 a.m., even if you didn't sleep well that night, you wake up at 5:30 a.m. and you go to bed at, if your sleep time was 10 p.m., you go to bed at 10 p.m.
So you shouldn't even try to get your full, you know how everyone says 8 hours, but let's say you were struggling to sleep until 4 a.m. and you have to wake up at 5:30, you still have to keep to it.
Yes, but there is a recommendation for duration of sleep. For adults, it's a minimum of 7 to 9 hours per night. As you get younger, that sleep duration actually increases a bit. That recommendation is because sleep is so important to our overall health, and we can talk a little bit about that as we go forward. So the key is you want to get that, at least that minimum amount of sleep, 7 to 9 hours. However, if you're getting significantly lower, you obviously want to build to that and get to that 7 to 9 hours. It might be hard to just jump to 9 hours if you were getting quite less sleep before that. But that's the goal. You want to get enough sleep each night. The key to setting set times for sleeping is to create a routine and almost to create consistency that your body can expect. So the first few nights, even the first few weeks, might be really difficult. But the key here is eventually your body starts to recognize, oh, it's 10 p.m., this is my sleep time. And what starts to happen is you naturally start to feel sleepy around that time. And again, it starts to realize, oh, it's 6 a.m., this is my wake time, for example, and you'll wake up. But it's about training yourself and going through the hard yards in the beginning to actually get that routine in place. Other kind of habits for sleep hygiene, or for good sleep hygiene, are things like avoiding caffeine close to bedtime. So that's, a good few hours before bedtime. Avoiding screens. So I know this is a big one. Not many of us are good at it, but this is it. Avoiding phones, TVs, laptops, at least an hour or two before bedtime. And this is because the light of those screens can be quite stimulating on our brains and keep us awake. It kind of keeps us active and we don't have that downtime, which maybe previously we had with it turning to night and our body's starting to recognize, oh, it's time to go to bed now. But with screens, we kind of artificially simulate that, hey, maybe it's not nighttime, it's still time to be active, and we stay up. So it's a hard one, but very, very important one. Other things to do are to limit daytime naps. This can be tricky, especially when you start to implement set wake and sleeping times, and if you had a problematic sleep in that time, you might feel a lot of daytime sleepiness and then therefore want to nap more. But the more we limit daytime naps, the more we're able to sleep at night. So that's an important one. The other one is actually exposing ourselves to daylight. And here again, it's exposing our bodies to daylight, so we know it's day now, and later it's night, which is time that we need to sleep. And the last one, which I think is really helpful, and actually I started to implement, is practicing relaxation and mindfulness techniques as you're falling asleep. And this is really, really useful in trying to just kind of shut off, stop that overthinking, which I think so many of us do when we're falling asleep at night, and just relaxing and letting our bodies relax. So why is it important? Why sleep? Well, we have research that shows that sleep is really important for our overall health generally. It's associated with our physical health. So if you have inadequate sleep, we actually have research that shows that that is associated with a range of physical health conditions, including obesity, hypertension or high blood pressure, coronary heart disease, as well as mortality. So sleep is really important to our physical health. We also have research that shows that sleep is linked to our cognitive as well as our mental health. So inadequate sleep can affect how we kind of mentally function throughout the day. And Obviously, the most obvious one is inadequate sleep can affect our daytime sleepiness. It can just make us sleepy through the day, which can affect concentration, memory, and a lot of skills that help, that we are involved with on a day-to-day basis. And then just lastly, where does sleep fit into our overall mental health picture, right? So sleep, as mentioned, is really important to mental well-being and mental health generally. But there's a few kind of factors that fit in, as well as sleep, that can help us with our mental well-being. So those things include things like awareness, right? So this is, you can access resources online. For example, we have the Vitality at Home page where you can find a lot more about this topic, but also speaking, to your healthcare professionals, accessing services that SADAG, South African Depression and Anxiety Group, offer. Here you can find a lot more resources to learn about this topic and about mental well-being in general. The next one is screening. So if you are having issues, whether those are mental well-being or even sleep-related issues, it's so important to actually access these resources, but talk about it. Speak to a healthcare professional. We have assessments for Vitality members, for example. Again, SADAG has dedicated phone and online resources. It's really important to speak about it and to find out more. Maybe you are going through something that actually can be helped and supported, but the only way you'll know is if you chat about it and get sort of that help that's there. And then lastly, there's day-to-day activities that we can all kind of implement and integrate into our lives that help us with our mental well-being. So the first one that we've already mentioned is sleep, but other things such as physical activity, promoting healthy eating and nutrition, as well as mindfulness, are all activities that have been shown that if we're able to implement them regularly and consistently, can really improve our mental well-being and help reduce feelings of stress and distress.
Every single time when I speak to you, because I told you the last time I struggled to sleep, but after our session I found that my sleeping had improved. But then with everything that you're mentioning, like setting sleeping times and wake times and all those like little things, I feel like it could go a long way in building a routine where your body learns to rest, because sometimes it's very difficult to rest even before bed. Like you're saying, when you get to bed your mind is racing. But one thing that I want to talk about, something that you touched on twice or even 3 times, was mindfulness. Can we talk about what role it plays in our mental well-being?
Yeah, and maybe start or take one step back on our mental well-being. We know, and even though there's a lot of factors, external factors, that play a role in our low rates of mental well-being and our high prevalence of mental health conditions. So we know there's things that COVID-19, financial distress, social conflict, all of these things erode our mental well-being and are often out of our control. However, there are things such as our ability to manage our thoughts or our behaviors or the way we interact with other people or the activities that we do in a day that are within our control and that can have a good impact on our mental well-being. One of those is mindfulness. So what mindfulness is, it's basically simply the act of being present in the moment and focusing on the now. So what happens a lot of the time is our minds are either thinking about what's coming up, what's happening in the future, planning for events, or playing things out that happened in the past, what went wrong, what went right, re-going through situations, and hardly ever do we stop to just kind of hone in and focus on now. And the idea behind mindfulness is it's designed to combat the stress, that fight or flight response that our bodies go through that often we're unaware of. The idea is that we focus on the now, we train our minds to learn to relax and sort of combat that stress response. And that's simply what mindfulness is.
And it plays a huge role in our mental well-being, because now we get to focus on the present, which is something that we never do.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens a lot of the time is we're going through, as you mentioned, especially in this day and age where there's so much information, so much activity, we're always on, we go through a lot of stress. And this can present physiologically. This can be, that back pain or that difficulty sleeping or that headache that you're going through or that general fatigue you're feeling. And sometimes we don't realize that that's actually coming from a kind of chronic level of stress that we're all going, all experiencing at different points in our lives. Mindfulness really is about trying to combat that physiological response. So when we have these higher levels of stress, we also get higher levels of stress hormones, right? And those stress hormones can play a role in, physiologically through different parts of our body and even our mind. Mindfulness is there to sort of just take a breath, relax, focus in on the present, and kind of just try try and combat that physiological stress response, try to get our bodies to combat that release of stress hormones and to just kind of get back into a nice rhythm. And that's essentially what mindfulness is trying to do and where the kind of rationale comes from. So in terms of mindfulness, it's a really good habit to get into. It's often hard to get into at the beginning, like any new habit, whether you're exercising for the first time or eating healthily for the first time. Sometimes it can feel a bit tedious and sometimes it can feel a bit difficult. But honestly, there's a lot of long-term benefits that are associated with mindfulness that can be really, really good for our bodies in the long and short term.
And I think it's about small victories, one step at a time, especially when you're trying to get in a new habit, because mental health and well-being can sometimes feel confusing and feel overwhelming. So how do we figure out what we're going through at the time? Like, I know that's where mindfulness comes in.
Yeah, that's a great question, because often the term gets thrown around, mental health and mental well-being, and we don't kind of break down into it a little bit better. We all know it's important, but we don't know maybe what's the steps we can do to sort of help our mental health and our mental well-being. So at Discovery Vitality, what we've done is we've designed a series of programs and interventions that are aimed to support both Vitality and non-Vitality members in improving their sense of mental well-being, but also reducing that sort of feeling of mental stress and distress. And we've done this through a few pillars and through a few interventions. These interventions are varied, they have wide appeal, and they're all evidence-based. And maybe I can talk to them in a few layers. So the first one we've already mentioned is the Vitality at Home webpage. You can find this on the Discovery website. And there, what we've done there is we've curated a whole lot of resources as well as tools to learn more about this topic, but also to begin to practice some of the things that we're talking about here. So I really recommend that. That's freely accessible and available to everyone. The next layer that we've done is we've introduced mental well-being assessments. This is for Vitality members. We have a range of assessments that are designed to support members learning more about their mental well-being. The assessments include assessments for depression, anxiety, sleep, resilience, alcohol use, as well as personal well-being. And here, the idea is assessments help people learn and understand more about their own mental well-being, but also they get awarded points if they complete those assessments. The next level, so generally the program is designed to improve mental well-being, but we have specific focuses on enhancing mindfulness, promoting good quality and adequate sleep, increasing physical and cardiovascular health through activities like physical activity, as well as promoting healthy eating. And to chat more a little bit about mindfulness, I would highly recommend that everyone tries Vitality partner apps in mindfulness. So we partner with Headspace, Calm, Buddhify, and Mindfulness app. Some of these apps are paid for services, but a few of them, for example, like Calm, offer a free limited offering where you can get involved, see the resources, and even follow along with guided mindfulness sessions, which I think we're going to demonstrate in a bit. And that's really important because you can get started. You can sort of dip your toe in and see how it feels and see what it does for you. And that's often the best way to experience something. Even if you've heard about it, it's often best to just try it for yourself. Today we're going to do a mindfulness session. And I think it's the one that I've picked is from the app. And it's specifically linked to sleep, actually. So the session today is designed to be a session that you would do while you're in bed and trying to fall asleep. And the idea here is that it's to lull you into a sense of restfulness, to focus on the present, and to get you into that sleepiness. So I hope everybody follows along. All you have to do is find a nice comfortable place to sit and just listen to the recording.
Oh, okay.
So just lying back down, making yourself comfortable in your bed. Taking a deep breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe out, closing the eyes. And just taking a moment to pause. No matter how much you want to go back to sleep, just letting go of that idea, letting go of any thinking. Just pausing to feel the weight of the body pressing down into the bed. feeling that contact, the feet, the ankles, the legs, the back, the arms, the hands, the head, allowing the bed to support the full weight of the body. And we're just going to begin slowly to count backwards, starting at 1000. Just steadily counting without any expectation, without any effort. Just creating the conditions for the mind to rest, for the body to rest. And if the body wants to drift back off to sleep. So if you find it helps, you can even imagine the numbers. Simply confident knowing we're resting the mind, resting the body. Knowing that we might count all the way back to 0, that's okay. Just staying with that steady rhythm. As always, allowing thoughts to come and go. But if you find yourself caught up in thoughts about thinking, about sleeping, just realizing that, letting it go, and just coming back to the counting again as you continue to steadily count backwards.
Wow, that was really great. I actually think I could have fallen asleep
Same.
right now. But yeah, that's an example of some of the mindfulness kind of tools you can use to help you in your day-to-day lives, including with falling asleep.
I'm definitely going to use that to fall asleep. That was amazing.
If you could mobilize a group of people, what movement would you mobilize and why?
I would call my movement the mindful movement. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death between people aged 15 and 29. 1 in 3 people are expected to suffer from mental illnesses in their lifetime. So I believe that mobilizing people to strive for mental health would actually fix so many social ills in our society, and that is what I would mobilize.